That is such a bad Australian accent.
I'm going to use that for the intro to the show.
Fellow auto detailers, welcome to the show that features interviews with today's most successful auto detailers. This is the Auto Detailing Podcast. Here's your host, Jimbo Balaam.
Today, guys, I'm excited to share with you something that has completely transformed the way I do business, and that is my new best friend. It's a customer relationship management software, or CRM for short, by the Better Software Company, or for short, B Pro. B Pro is the #1 all-inclusive small business management solution. Customer revenue is the lifeblood of any small business. We've talked about that a lot on the show. And that's why B Pro comes with a variety of features to help you boost your business, including email marketing. Anyone want to do that? How about lead generation? We talked a lot about that at the Detailer Marketing Bootcamp. Opportunity management. How about all those quotes that you give out? How about following up on those? B Pro will even remind you when a customer is likely ready to buy from you again. How about that? So a customer comes in for a detail. Hey, maybe in a few months, the software reminds you to follow up with that customer. Imagine that. B Pro has everything you need to run your auto detailing business in one easy-to-use solution. From customer management, invoicing, inventory, for you guys that have a shop that sell products and detail cars, orders, scheduling, timesheets, all on one platform. B Pro has you covered. Only B Pro offers the same functionality on your smartphone as on your laptop. So imagine that. You're out on the road, you're out in the field, you're at your shop, wherever you are, everything's in the cloud. So it's all the same no matter where you are. Get started today by going to thebettersoftwarecompany.com. That's thebettersoftwarecompany.com. Tell them you heard about them from Jimbo on the Auto Detailing Podcast. It'll make them happy. You'll get the special treatment. Welcome to episode 241 of the Auto Detailing Podcast. And this is just two mates talking.
That is still so bad.
So if you don't recognize that sexy voice, that's Grant Hawtree.
Oh my God, you got it right. Yes!
Grant Hawtree.
You're a winner.
I'm a winner. And Grant, this is your lucky number 2 of the day. And I was on point with the interview that will actually go out a week after everyone's listening to this interview. But you know what? It's getting later in the day, and it's been hot. It's been a really hot week, and I'm spent. So you're getting the worst of me, which is probably the best of me.
It sounds like a Corona time.
So before we hit record, welcome back to the show, by the way, Grant.
Oh, thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
Thanks for coming back on. And basically what happened was I released last week's episode about dealer work, and Grant hit me up and he said, that was a terrible episode. You should have me on because I actually do dealer work and actually can provide some really good content. So that's why I brought you back on, Grant. That was just a slight exaggeration. That's not what you said.
Oh my God. You're terrible.
So, but right before we hit the record button, you were getting into some really good stuff. So let's rewind the clock a little bit and proceed with what you were going to tell me.
Okay. We've been in business now, about 23 years, I think.
Actually, give a little bit of background for people who didn't listen to your first episode. They can go back to autodetailingpodcast.com and just search Grant in the search bar. Your previous show will pop up. But give a little synopsis of who you are, where you're at, what's going on.
Yep, sweet. Well, obviously you already know my name, but I work for a company called Final Touch Paint Repair Technology, and we specialise in doing lots of sort of reconditioning work, detail work, whether it be everyday stuff to high-end or high-dollar value cars. Like our biggest bread and butter is our stone chip repair technique. That sort of helps people save money on having, front ends of cars repainted.
Which is a very, for us in the States, is a very interesting concept that you got to go back and listen to. It's actually, I just searched, it's episode 214 So definitely go back because we take a deep dive into that kind of the paint touch-up thing.
Yep, definitely. Just goes off our patented spray and wipe technique. That's been our sort of, our partial bread and butter for the last sort of 20 plus years. Now, on average, we turn out about anywhere between 200 to 250 cars a month just for dealerships.
Wow.
So, yeah, and some of those customers, comparing, I'm not going to try and sort of do exchange rate dollar or anything like that, but in our market, that's anywhere between $5,000 to $6,000 a month per customer. So, yeah, exactly. And you multiply that by, half a dozen dealerships, that's not a bad turnover per month for such a small company with, God, how many staff do we have? There's myself, my boss, 2, 3, 6 guys.
Which explains why you're recording this from a white sand beach somewhere off the coast of Fiji, right?
Yeah, and everything gets deposited into my Cayman Islands account. Oh dear. Nah, it's one of those things where, I hear a lot of people talking about, they talk about mobile detailing and, that's all great and stuff, and a lot of people tend to talk about maintenance, but a lot of people, especially a lot of detailers, don't like talking about dealership work because they feel it's almost like it's in the too hard list. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh. Right.
And I find it a bit frustrating because we're in a market where, the car guy with money is a very, very small market. It's probably maybe 10% or less of the whole entire automotive population. So it's very hard for us to be always taking pictures of, Lamborghinis and Aston Martins and Porsches and Ferraris. And I understand that side of the business. That's the sexy side of the detail business. But no one really gets down to the nitty gritty of actually talking about making money out of dealership work. Now, I'm not saying we've got it down packed, sure. But if you can figure out your numbers and learn how to work your numbers and what works for you, and if you can figure it out, as to speak, it can be quite profitable for you. I'm not saying we're millionaires at doing it, but we make damn good money out of it.
You're not losing money.
No, not at all. Not at all. The biggest thing I find is now a good buddy of mine who's a used car manager, and he's actually the owner's son of a local Toyota dealership. He just got back maybe about a month ago from one of the big Toyota dealerships in California where I'm not too sure which part of California, but apparently they just bought a museum up the street from them to extend. So I'm not entirely sure. I'll have to find out which place it was, but he got back and he was telling me how things work over there. So what we tend to do may possibly work in our market, may not work in your market, because sure. I know a lot of reconditioning in your guys' part of the world is all done in-house by the dealerships. Whether it be
sometimes,
yeah.
I think, like a lot of things, it would depend on the dealership and stuff.
Yeah, like I'm generally talking about large franchise dealerships.
Okay.
Like your Toyota, Lexus, and like this one that he went to. He was telling me he said the service department does 250 retail jobs a day.
Whoa.
And that blew me away, because apparently the guys at service there is no parts counter. They go up to a vending machine and they put in the chassis number of the car, let's just say a Toyota Camry or whatever, and it drops down what it needs for that 15,000 mile service or whatever, and that blew me away.
That's a monster.
Yeah, and apparently they're selling something like 40,000 new cars a month or something stupid.
Wow.
Just what I refer to as telephone numbers.
Yeah, totally.
For what we sell a year as a nation, I think there's what that dealership sells a year. So they sell like 140, 150,000 cars a year or something.
You know what's crazy? It just blows me away at how many new cars are sold each year, and it's just like, where are all these people?
But thing is, like, for example, I read in our paper maybe about a month or two ago that last year we did 147,000 brand new cars, and I was just like, wow, that's a lot. for a nation of 4.5 million people. And then I saw from basically January 1st through to about the end of May, we'd sold already about 55,000 new cars. So I kind of figured that's probably going to shoot up even a wee bit more in that short period of time. So we could be on target for sort of maybe 150, 155 new cars sold this year. So, but apart from sort of getting off on track on that, getting back to the reconditioning side of things, a lot of our dealerships over here, Jim, don't have reconditioning centres in-house. And that's what makes someone like us very, I don't want to say, I'd probably say very unique. The fact that we've got a very niche system that will help the dealerships save money. Now, talking to one dealership south of our, probably about 20 minutes south of the city centre, he's a Mitsubishi and Hyundai dealership combined, so two brands under one roof. His annual reconditioning cost through a body shop ranges anywhere between $300,000 to $500,000 a year.
Wow. And
that's a lot of dough, man, in our market. That is a truckload of money.
Yeah.
And you break that down, and that's like 30 grand a month or something. You know, my maths is not perfect, but 30 grand a month is a damn lot to be spending on, and that's just on having like front ends done or maybe a door painted, you know, and that just seems insane. Whereas, you know, with our sort of niche reconditioning system, we can go in there and I'll just pick sort of numbers at random. It's not sort of set stuff, but like we'll do a complete car for say $250 for a dealership, you know, and that's giving it kind of like a one-step sort of very mild paint correction, say with like a like a Meg's PRC 151 with like a red pad, and then we'll just wipe it down with a detailer and then move on to sort of doing the stone chip repair. Yeah, you know, you take $250 and you multiply that by, say, what they may get in 10 or 12 cars a week. So, you know, like I say, $5,000 or $6,000 customer each month. They're certainly saving a truckload of money, if you get my point.
Right.
So let's just say it was $1,000 to have the front end blown out on a car, and we come in and we do the whole thing for $250.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
$850, you multiply that by so much, and then you're going to start figuring it out. But the biggest thing that I find is with a lot of people when it comes down to dealerships is how to get into dealerships. A lot of people don't know how to get in there and do the work. There's no point that I find is chasing your local second-hand sort of, I think you referred to it as a mom and pop kind of dealership where it's like a whole bunch of like very high mileage used Crown Vics or something like that.
Right.
I'm guessing.
Right.
You know what I mean? And there's no point in trying to go to a dealership that's already got reconditioning in house. You don't. The reason why I say those two is a lot of those cheaper dealerships won't spend the money, or those cheaper car yards. I tend to break dealerships and yards up differently. Those small second-hand car yards, they've got such low profit margins in the cars, they will spend no money on reco.
Right.
Absolutely none. So their system will work on a basis of, we'll sell a ton of cars a month, like 30 cars a month, but we'll make maybe a couple of $100 a car.
Right.
You know what I mean? But on the other hand, if you take a dealership, a lot of dealerships tend to have more profit in vehicles, therefore they don't sell as many sometimes, but they tend to have larger margins. So you've got to be very careful about how you pick and choose your dealerships.
So how would you go about that? If you're looking, how did you guys go about that? If you're looking at, did they come to you or did you guys kind of seek them out?
From what I understand, when the company first started, we went along to dealerships and offered our services.
Okay.
We got laughed at, I think, by a couple, but for example, one customer that took us on was a local sort of Holden dealership, or in your guys' case, it'd be a local sort of Chevy dealership. And we've now been doing work for them for the last 23 years.
Wow.
So, you know, and that's been, we've done that dealership every Tuesday for the last 23 years.
That's
You know?
that's a lot of cars. Have you guys ever added up how many cars that would be?
Oh, wouldn't have a damn clue. It'd be
Tens of
huge.
thousands, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's all about forming a good relationship with the customer. I feel that's the biggest thing to do. You know, you've mentioned it before, I think, with Nelson, I think, in that talking about dealerships as well. You've got to find out what the hot buttons are with some of these guys. Like the local Toyota dealership I do work for, I actually don't physically see the used car manager who's the same age as me. I actually see one of the guys that's been there on and off for the last, 20 years or so, perhaps, maybe even the last sort of 15, 16. And we've done work for him in the past, and he's moved to different dealerships, and we've done work with him. And I see him practically, a couple of times a week, and we have a little system where we just walk around the yard, and we have like little vinyl dot stickers, and we just put them on the window and say, hey, we need to do this one, and it just ends up becoming a great relationship. And you end up sharing quite a lot of stuff in common. Like, he's got an interest in the English Premier League. He's a big Leicester City fan, and he was super excited when they won the European League and or the English Premier League. And funny enough, the team that I grew up with as a kid came second, so we were always chatting and having a good time, and you kind of end up being almost like one of the other guys there, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, you become an extension of their operation.
Yeah, exactly. And even though there were guys going in there undercutting us by, anything up to $100 less a car, the quality and the service wasn't the same. And that's the biggest thing. And
which is always an issue. Guys talk a lot about, I see all the time, and they ask questions of like, what do I do with the local competition who's undercutting me? And I'm like, why are they your competition? They're undercutting you on price. So if you know that you can't operate at that rate, neither can they. So they're not going to be around long, because either they're not going to be around long because they're not making enough money to support their operation, or they come to the realization one day that they're not making enough money to even buy lunch, and so they quit.
Yeah, pretty much. You've hit the nail on the head. And like the biggest thing is you mentioned before about how to sort of get into there and what have we done. There's been times where we've had flat spots in the market where we've been to all of our customers throughout town, and some days we just haven't picked up a car. We've been dead quiet. Admittedly, it hasn't been like that for the last probably 3 or 4 years. But it's the thing of, yes, everybody hates cold calling, and we all know it just sucks. A lot of people don't like it. Exactly. And there's been times where I've gone into dealerships and I've said, hey, look, this is us, such and such, and this is what we specialize in. Have you got anything we could possibly take a look at? And just as a courtesy, we'll do the first sort of couple of front ends with our stone chip repair for free. It's so it's a sort
that's
of
maybe that's a good lead in. I like that.
Yeah, and just be yourself when you do it. Don't be like, hey, look, we are the cat's meow, and we're the next best thing since sliced bread. There's no point in going in like that, because you're going to set your expectations extremely high. And, you're going to basically, 9 times out of 10, you're going to flop when doing that. So
Totally.
You just be yourself and just say, hey, look, just try to just be in that situation where you can under-promise and over-deliver. Just go in there and say, hey, look, I'll do a couple of front ends for free. And, yeah, you might have to write that off as marketing.
That's
somehow.
okay, though. If it gains you an account that's getting you $5,000 a month, I'm sure you'd do that every month.
It's let's just say it's $300 worth of work that you do you do off in a couple of hours, and then before you know it, the guy goes, oh wow, holy moly, that looks pretty damn good. Okay, well, I tell you what, I've got a Commodore or something over there that needs to be done, and then lo and behold, before you know it, you end up knocking out about probably 4 or 5 cars that day, and for that money you've just lost, you've kind of made up for your day, if you know what I mean. It may not be the perfect spot on day, but you've certainly gained a customer, and you've gained some respect.
How do you, from a workflow standpoint, you said you're doing 200 to 250 cars a month. And you don't do only dealer work, so you're also doing retail work. So from a workflow standpoint, how are you managing that amount of cars?
It sounds like a lot, and how we manage it, it's quite clever how we do it. I know for most of one of our guys is based out of a lease company, Oryx, that you've probably heard of, another big global brand. One of our guys
what was
is
it
based
again?
out.
What was the brand?
Oryx. They're a big leasing company,
Okay.
a bit like a bit like Hertz or someone like that.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah,
Car rental.
not so much rentals. They're mainly sort of about lease cars or company cars.
Got it. Okay.
So I think Mannheim or someone like that might ring a bell, or Fowles. I think they're another big company. And he bases himself out there 5 days a week. So there's never a shortage of cars for him. So
Nice.
He's got just imagine there's something the size of a football field out back, just full of cars.
Wow.
And they tend to either wholesale those through auction houses, which dealerships will pick up, or they end up retailing them themselves out front if they think they're nice, if the cars are nice enough and profitable enough.
Okay.
We've got another guy based out at a Toyota dealership in deep South Auckland, and he looks after 2 customers. He looks after the Toyota dealership in Manukau and a Hyundai dealership in Green Lane. So a couple of days a week he's in Green Lane, and then a couple of days a week he's in Manukau doing stuff out there. Myself personally, I'm lucky enough that I've got another 2 guys working with me, so there's 3 of us. So we can run a ton of volume each week. We roughly do a couple of days a week for a Subaru dealership in Green Lane, which is sort of central CBD. And then we also do private stuff along with coatings and a few other things, and also the local Toyota dealership, which is about 6 kilometres down the road from us.
Okay.
So it's not that far. And they give me anywhere between 10 to 15 cars a week, or roughly a fortnight. So there's guaranteed work there for me all the time. And a lot of it's ex-rental or ex-lease cars. So I'm in a situation where with 3 of us on it, we grab 2 cars at a time. And because we're not doing full 100% paint correction, we're essentially just...
Wait, you're not doing full paint corrections, Grant? I thought you were full paint correction and coating only.
Yeah, one of those miracle detailers. One of those master detailers.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
No, look, it's we essentially just go, right, you've got to know your numbers. When it comes to this business, you've got to know your numbers. And let's just say a retail job, what would usually come in, let's just say cut, polish, spray and a pencil of all the stone chips and stuff and the bodywork. Let's just say we'll take a number of $500, okay? That's what would be our retail number, okay? And we generally get maybe 2 or 3 of those a week through our little shop in Albany. And our dealership work is roughly, let's just say, half that at $250. So for what we need to make a day, we just go, okay, we need to make A, B, C, and therefore we need to do X, Y, Z to get there. So we'll generally turn out anywhere between 4 to 5 cars a day. We're just generally one staging them, sort of with like an all-in-one, like a 151 or something like that. Sometimes we'll maybe switch to a tougher compound on the front end, because these cars that they're generally buying are anywhere between $25,000 and under, and they've got 30,000 Ks, maybe more, maybe less. But they've all lived a life of ex-rental cars out at the airport, where the people out at the airport don't give a rat's ass. They just gas it, jam it through a slap and scratch car wash, and go park it up. And then, boom, move on to the next car. And when I say these cars are hammered, like there's scratch marks in the roof from the brushes that we can't get out.
Wow.
And we'll churn over, like I say, 3 to 4 of those a day. And if it's a larger vehicle, let's just say a Toyota Highlander or something like that, basically anything bigger than a RAV4 I'll charge a wee bit extra for. So say anything up to say $300 from our base price at $250.
So what's your go-to, if you're just one step in it, what's your go-to machine pad product?
For us, the way I look at it is, if it's not too bad, it's basically Roops 21, DFC 6, the sort of the maroon foam pads, the real low profile ones.
Yep,
and those. Yeah, I just love those. I can't seem to crack microfiber properly.
You know what? I'm such an idiot. I just bought 2 brand new microfiber pads yesterday, but I like them burgundy foam pads better. Whatever.
I for some reason I need to go back and look at my procedure. For some reason, every time I picked up a microfiber pad lately, it just packs down, and I'm like, screaming at myself. I don't know what the hell I'm doing wrong. But
story of my life, Grant, is use less product.
Yeah, but I've used like half the size of a 9-inch nail head.
Right.
Of like 205 or something, and I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Like brand new pads, blown out pad, clean pads. Just I've got to go back and just literally scratch my head. Admittedly, I'm not doing brand new cars. You know, I'm doing stuff where I'm removing quite a lot of beaten up material very quickly.
Right.
Yeah, but getting back on track, and we'll use Meg's PRC 151 paint reconditioning cream, because we can just blitz the cars really quickly. We can generally turn around a car. 2 guys can turn a car around in about 2 hours.
Wow. That's not the cleaner wax, that's just the paint reconditioning cream. Got it.
Yeah, because essentially, partially cuts, polish, and puts a wax on it, and then we'll maybe wipe it down with like Meg's synthetic spray wax, or sometimes optimum spray wax, or just like final inspection afterwards, just to get any dust or particles off.
Okay.
The main thing is dealerships have a quick turnaround.
Right.
So
Yep.
They have a situation where they don't want cars to hang around more than 90 days. So they just, if it's there more than 90 days, they'll just flick it and wholesale it, because they've got stuff sitting out back or stuff ready to go on that's selling. For example, hot property for us at the moment is any kind of commercial vehicle, whether it be a Hilux or a Hi-Ace van. That stuff is really hard to get hold of at the moment, and as soon as they get one in, they want it turned around as quick as possible, because they've already got people that have essentially pre-purchased them.
So you're opposite seasons of me right now, so you're in wintertime, right?
That's correct.
So is like I touched on in the last episode of doing dealer work for guys in rougher climates. I don't think you're in that rough of a climate. I could be wrong. I'm not too sure.
We've been known to have tornadoes go through Albany Village.
Okay. So how does, I'm just thinking now you're in the quote-unquote slower season. So talk about how the dealer work helps you guys kind of push through when the retail side of things may slow down or may not slow down for you. I'm not sure. Correct me where I'm wrong. But how does the dealer work keep you stabilized as a company?
Ooh, that's a good question. It's the thing is, because we're providing such a good service, and a good friendly service, and whenever they've needed stuff urgently, and I'm just basing this off the Toyota dealership that I sort of do quite a lot of work for. We've been there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I got a phone call last week. They'd sold a demonstrator Corolla that had 3,500 Ks on it, and they said, "Look, we're stuck in a jam. It's got about 8 or 9 chips on the bonnet. It's silver. It's going out. Can you just touch it up as best you could, because the people think they're buying a new car when it is kind of a semi-new car." And I said, "Look, hey man, no worries. We're coming down. We'll be there in about 5 minutes. We're dropping back another one. Boom, pick that car up." And it was such a small job. Those kind of tiny jobs I generally don't really charge for, because it's almost not worth the paper it's written on the invoice. It's just, when they're giving me 12 or 15 cars a week and we're turning them over every 2 hours, it's just boom, 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 or if they say, "Hey, look, we've just had one of the guys is, rubbed up against a fence post or something like that," and it's, "Hey man, no worries, I'll look after you," or "Hey, can we get a tiny little jar of touch-up paint. It's one of those things that, and I know Joe's brought this up in the past on some stuff, is sort of being on time, showing your face, and obviously having clean, shiny cars is definitely a part of it, but providing a really good service and going above and beyond, but not too far above and beyond that you're losing money.
Sure. But you're touching on, playing and building up that relationship with your customers that makes it harder and nearly impossible for them to go anywhere else, because you've built the relationship not only beyond detailing but also taking care of them when it's most pressing.
Yeah, because body shops are like, their hours are like 8 till 4:30.
Right.
And they may not be able to get something done in a jiffy, and a bit of a hard time. And generally, body shops are a lot further away than us. And we just take one of our little loan cars down there from our shop in Albany. Like I say, we're 5 minutes down the road. We grab a couple of cars. We just leave our loan car practically there all week, right. And we just rotate the cars around. And we've never had a time recently where there's been no work available. There's always work there, and it's just fantastic. You end up getting to the point where, like I was fortunate enough last year that the owners of the business invited me up to their large farm property, and they gave us one of their classic 911 turbos to take to a what we call speed show, which is essentially a bit like SEMA, but not as big, just really like a really tiny, small, minuscule, miniature scale of SEMA. As much as I want SEMA to happen down here, it probably never will. But you get to meet the family, and I got invited into the house, and they got half a dozen dogs running around, and before you know it, it's, oh, hey, look, you've done a fantastic job with the Porsche. How about you take the other one, and then while you're at it, you can grab the limousine that's down in the showroom at the same time. You end up becoming more than just a service, if you get my point.
Yep.
Yep. It's like you've said in the past. You end up becoming a bit like a barman, or kind of like the therapist, if you get my point.
Totally.
Like me and the used car manager Hayden, he's nuts about motorcycles, and he's just started getting into adventure riding. And I said to him, oh God, what are you going to do next? Buy a BMW bike and grow a beard and go across the old salt trails or something like that? And he's just, you end up sharing stuff in common, and they almost end up becoming almost like a really good friend.
Right, totally. And then that makes work more enjoyable, makes you more enjoyable, it makes everything so much better.
And you actually end up wanting to do more for them.
Right. Totally.
And that's what sets you apart from your competition.
Exactly.
So, yeah, become more of, rather than becoming just another Walmart or another McDonald's kind of service, just be something more, if you know what I mean. Be something niche to them, something that they need.
Be irreplaceable. Be irreplaceable.
Pretty much. It's, be the first point of call for them.
Right.
And you'll find that, like I say, you get to know the rest of the family, and they'll end up enjoying your business a lot longer, and before you know it, you end up picking up a whole bunch of dealerships.
Definitely.
And it's and then you can convince them to essentially just about give you every single car to do, rather than then send it out to a body shop.
Right.
And then before you know it, you're making that $5,000 or $6,000 a month.
Yeah. What else am I missing that you wanted to touch on, or that you thought about when you were listening to the episode?
Actually, I've got some notes I jotted down from something before. I think one of the biggest problems is a lot of people tend to get that wholesale market mixed up, and they're not very confident on which way to go. Like when I talk about that wholesale market, I'm talking about auction houses, and I'm talking about dealerships or wholesalers or anything like that. Anything from that sort of wholesale perspective, a lot of people get sort of worried about, and I find the biggest problem is people are chasing the wrong type of dealership, the wrong type. I think when you put up, when you did that podcast on dealerships, one guy was like, I only do like a Ferrari and a Porsche dealership. Now, if you're in that market where you're living in Beverly Hills or whatever, and there's nothing but Maserati dealerships and Ferrari dealerships on every corner, that's really cool, and that makes for really great stuff. But in a market or a climate like ours, it's very difficult because those dealerships are very few and far between. There'll be one dealership like that in town. That's
right.
it. The rest are all your Audis and Volkswagens and Toyotas and Lexuses. One thing that we've always maintained is there's always more Mazda 6s than what there's going to be Maseratis.
Yep. Yep.
And that's where your money's going to be made, is in those Mazda 6s rather than your Maseratis.
Yeah, I got a quick story. Last week I made more money doing a 2000, and I was going to take a picture of it, and then I just didn't. I made more money doing a 2003 Toyota Camry with failing paint than I did on a Porsche GT3.
Yeah.
Of course, I did more, but I was just funny, like, wow, this was so much easier. The expectation was way less. It was less stressful, and I made more doing it.
But as a detailer, do you really want to put pictures of that Camry up online?
No.
Exactly, because you don't want 6 million phone calls coming through going,
right.
Hello, I've got one of these. And then you're just going to get inundated with just big piles of crap.
which was the story of my life last week. For some reason, I had 3 Toyota Camrys that were either a 2000 to 2003 that all had failing paint, that all wanted a quote to buff out the oxidized paint. I landed one of them, so 30%. That's not a bad closing rate.
Now, one thing I want to touch on was when you were talking about that Porsche dealership that eventually got to the point where they were paying you per hour or something like that.
Yes.
Just run me through that again, just to refresh my memory.
So basically, they didn't have so they had me coming in to do the cars on a weekly basis at their showroom. And then they also had a higher-end detailer that was a detailer, but also, like, he would do more extensive reconditioning work as well.
Now, was he an outside contractor, or was he actually part of the company?
He was not part of the company. He had a shop, like, a couple streets away. So they would send cars to him. Like, for example, they bought an old Mercedes 300D off this random guy that just, like, pulled in one night and wanted to sell his car. Turned out it was low mileage. And so they sent that car over to this detail shop, and the guy, like, refinished the wood grain inside, like, did a very extensive detail that borderlined the restoration. Okay? So, and then I was brought in more of the guy to, like, hey, knock the dust off. Right, so I was doing both they had 2 locations. I was doing both their locations. The cars were fine, and it's kind of weird because when you start getting over it as the detailer, it usually means that they're getting over you as well. And it's like the unspoken whatever. So at least that's true for me. So I started getting that vibe of, like, I'm kind of over this. I'm working on cool cars, but they're kind of jerks to work with, and they don't want to pay good. And then they went down to, like, hey, instead of us paying you per unit, like, out of the blue, instead of us, because they were writing some pretty decent checks, and I wasn't spending a ton of time there. So that's where it started getting, like, unsettling, and I was getting the weird vibe when it came down to paying me. And they're like, man, you were only here 2 hours, but I'm writing you a check for $300. Like, you're making an awful lot of money, And it's like, well, hold on a sec. Like, you're not even looking at the work or what I'm doing. You're just basing your judgment off how much you're paying me, So then it went down to, hey, why don't we pay you for 6 hours worth of work. They were calling it a full day, and to me that's like a day and a half worth of work. Just kidding. But why don't we pay you per day? You know, because then from their mindset, they're like, well, we'll just have you do more work, you know, in that same time frame. But from my point, I'm like, I'm not doing any more work, you know?
Yeah.
So I went to that, and then it just was pretty much like, for one of their locations, I said, hey, it's not working out for me anymore to do that at that location, so I'm going to stop doing that. And they were like, yeah, it's not working out for us either there. And I hung on to their other location for a while after that. And a couple months after I dropped one of their locations, they were like, how about we just pay you by the hour? And they're like, we'll pay you $50-$60 an hour. That's fine, whatever you want. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll try it. And then I just got into this thing of like, oh man, now I got to be here for 3 hours to meet my quota. And I was just like, I'm done with this.
Now, okay, when in a situation like that this is where I try to separate car groomers from detailers. What they were essentially lacking, in my opinion, is someone like a car groomer that should have been going to and from, that they were paying an hourly rate, like an hourly rate themselves, rather than getting someone from, rather than, you know, contracting that out, because to me that's just them being really tight with purse strings.
Yeah,
and they only
exactly.
Yeah, and they only want to pay someone a minimum wage to do the minimum work.
Exactly.
It's no different from us. Like, for example, the Lamborghini dealership we do work for over in town occasionally, their guy is fully qualified, and I've got a ton of respect for that guy. He's been doing it for a long period of time, and I'm really jealous of him because he's going into a brand new Aston Martin dealership soon, right across the street that they're building, and it's going to be the biggest closed roadside front Aston Martin dealership in the world.
Wow.
It's going to be absolutely gorgeous, dude. It's really, really sweet. Now, he can do a lot of the stuff that we can do to a certain percentage, but they still get us to go in there and just do like a full paint correction on like a Ferrari they may trade or an Aston Martin they may get in, because we're that much better. Now, from his perspective, this car groomer's perspective, we're not taking work off him. You know what I mean? We're making his day easier so he can get other stuff done.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because he's got a list of things he has to do. Make sure the yard's clean, you know, showroom's tidy, you know, the lot is all nice and clean, you know, there's no weeds and things like that. So he's got his daily stuff that he has to get through. Now, in your situation that you got stuck in, those guys were just too tight and too cheap to just put someone on the books and have someone come in. Geez, even if they got someone part-time to come in 3 days a week, it just shows that, and you were ballsy enough to stick with it, and I applaud you for that. If that was me, I just would have pulled the pin and gone, look, I need to be making this an hour, and if I'm not making that an hour, I just can't do it.
Right.
You know, I wouldn't have chased it for as long as you did.
Yeah, well, because they were good for about pushing $1,500 a month. And I was working probably about 5 to 6 hours a week.
Yeah, see, they just would have been better off. Even if that guy that was down the street doing all that Rico work on that old 300,
right,
they should have just said, hey, look, if you got someone in your shop that can come down,
right,
it's like, and this is the biggest thing, don't go chasing the tight-ass dealerships or the tight-ass car yards, because they're just never going to pay. We've had customers in the past where we've gone above and beyond, but he's still compared us to a repainted finish, and the cars that he's given us they're in the condition where they should have gone to panel and paint, but he's just so tight he doesn't want to pay that.
Right.
And then he's just like, oh, you know, is that the best it can be? And blah, blah, blah. And you're like, dude, I've just slogged out like half a day on one car for you to get it as mint as it can possibly be. And now you're going to, you know, we've learned not to chase those cheap dealerships. Just don't bother. It's not worth, like, go in there, give a business card, but before you sort of go in and talk to whether it be the owner or the used car manager or, you know, a sales manager or whoever it may be, just have a quick wander around the yard, check out some cars, see what kind of condition most of the cars are in.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're in a pretty poor condition, or they're fairly average, or you can see like a lot of paintwork's been done, don't go chasing it, because you can and just think about what part of town you're in as well. If you're in a sort of a cheaper part of town, then it's just not worth it, man. Just try to be a niche service to a dealership, even if they've got reconditioning in-house. Maybe just try and offer something that they don't do in-house.
Yeah, exactly.
Which leads me on to another part that we're sort of getting into ourselves, is as time's going on, for us, it's getting to the point now where detailing is becoming quite I don't want to say a trade for us over here, but it's getting a lot better, and a lot more people are taking interest in it. And the good thing if you're in a situation like ours, we're now to the point where we're going to start getting into other opportunities to sort of partner alongside with dealerships and help them upskill their staff to sort of help provide credible services to their clients. Like we do have a situation where we do have some dealerships where they think our services are expensive, when realistically, compared to a body shop, they're not. So a lot of them do tend to keep stuff in-house, but they just go buy the equipment and don't really get the proper training to learn how to use the equipment. So the other bonus is with working with a dealership, sometimes you can help with the training alongside with some other stuff. And there's a lot of good sort of pros to go along with that, and a lot of sort of bonuses. Like, for example, one of our Ford dealerships in town, they have a Ford and a Mazda brand under their roof. They have a huge turnaround, and we're to the point where we just couldn't get there enough because we were so busy. So they bought one of our in-house systems, and they employ one of their own staff that's been through very vigorous training with us that does all their stuff in-house, and then we get a rebate from that each month.
That works.
Yeah, it's what we refer
awesome.
to as it's what we refer to as a static unit, and you're still getting a cut from that. You know what I mean? So
Heck
it's
yeah.
not a huge. It's not going to be a $6,000 or $7,000 a month sort of account, but
that's okay though.
Something's better than nothing, right?
Definitely.
So as time goes on, and the Toyota dealership I do work for, they have their groomers that do the yard, and then they actually outsource all their used cars to a groomer that works, to a grooming company that works down the road by their tyre shop. So all the used cars go down there. All the new cars are done by the new car groomer, because obviously they tend to separate the departments as separate businesses.
Okay.
And the new car groomer installs, coatings and bits and pieces and stuff like that. Whereas the used car guys will just specifically use these guys because they're cheaper.
Okay.
So there's situations where you can work in alongside dealerships and really sort of help offer training to other places.
Right.
So don't just write dealerships off. Oh, there's no money to be made and all that kind of carry on. So as we're moving forward, we're going to get to the point where we're actually going to offer training services for car groomers at dealerships so they can help raise their game.
Diversification. I love it.
Exactly. So, and I'm not ragging on the retail side of things, because in our market, the retail market it's good, but it's not consistent enough yet.
Got it.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, we're slowly getting into the point where we're going to try and start offering maintenance services, but only in certain areas or with current Final Touch customers, where we've installed like a coating or something like that, where we can go out to their place once a fortnight or whatever, just quickly whip around the car, and it gives us a chance to help see how the coatings and other bits and pieces and how people are maintaining their cars, whether they're maintaining it correctly or incorrectly, and then we can adjust. And it's providing, it's going back to that key word of service.
Right. Yep.
So that's the sort of the direction that we're moving in. So, and it's really exciting for me because I love to give back to that sort of community, if you get my point.
I do.
A buddy of mine recently purchased a new VFSS Redline Holden Commodore Ute the other week, and he wanted some specific requirements for the car. We plastic dipped out all the chrome, did a couple other bits, installed a coating, and because he was a good buddy of mine, I sort of I took my car in on a Saturday, and I sort of sat it in the back of the shop, and I knew where he was situated that he didn't have access to a hose, so I showed him how to do a waterless wash, and he just went, "Dude, you've made my day."
I love that. What did you use? ONR?
Pretty much. I just said, "Hey, dude, if you do this and this and work this way, it'll be mint." And I said, "Look, it doesn't really matter if you just have a little bit of shampoo or whether you use ONR." Right. I said, I just gave a quick demo, and I said, "Look, this is probably going to be the best way for you to wash your ute in the situation you're situated." He's not so much of an apartment complex. He's in like a essentially what we call a block of flats, so similar to how you guys have your motels laid out in a long stretch rectangle.
Right, okay.
And he's right down the other end, so there's not much access to sort of a hose or water.
Okay.
That's fairly close to the car, so I just said, "Hey, dude, you might be better off just trying this." And, we're sort of working along with dealerships along that same sort of line, just trying to help bring them forward a bit with the technology rather than just using the classic hose and a chamois and
totally.
or using a commercial sized truck brush
right.
on yards. We're just trying to help maintain and just I don't want to say set a standard for the industry, but just show people that there's better ways.
Totally. That's what I'm trying to do too. So, all right, let's wrap this up. If someone wants to connect with you or Final Touch, how do they do that?
Just look us up on Facebook, Final Touch Auckland. You can reach me personally on Facebook. That's Grant Hawtree. That's Hawtree. Just look me up on Facebook, like me, send me a message, whatever suits. Check out our website. We've got franchises throughout the globe now, so things are looking better and brighter. So if you have any questions or comments, just hit me up on Facebook.
I love it. Thanks, Grant.
So don't remember, people, don't write off dealerships.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Auto Detailing Podcast. Head on over to autodetailingpodcast.com for full show notes and links of everything that we've talked about today. And don't forget to check out our resources page for a direct link to all the products talked about not only on today's episode, but that I use in my day-to-day detail business. They have direct links so you can purchase and get free shipping right from that page. That's autodetailingpodcast.com. We'll see you on the next episode.